on and off button on the phone, but nevertheless, I'm sure there is something there. So we can all enjoy our evening here tonight without any distractions. First of all, on behalf of my brother and myself and the CJL Property Forum, James Letterman right over here, Steve Wayne and Anthony Abrams, I'd like to welcome you here tonight to our beautiful centre in the heart of the West End, great location. But most importantly, what's special, what's unique about this place is it is a place where Jews connect. When Jews come together, great things happen. Most times. So please God, tonight, good things happen on a social level, on a business level. That is really the purpose, the aim of everything that happens in this beautiful centre. And we thank you very much for coming here this evening. It is our honour, it is our pleasure to have with us tonight Mr. Trevor Abrahmsohn, chairman, the founder of an organisation, of a company that many of you have seen over the years, Lentry International, Lentry Estates, Lentry International. But tonight you will hear the story behind Lentry Estates. You will hear the story behind Trevor. This is Trevor's night to tell his story, you see, because in life there's always a story. This story is a very interesting story, and real stories have ups, have downs, have highs and lows, and we'll hear all about that tonight. Because wisdom, as the Talmud says, wisdom is gained by one thing, and one thing only, and that is experience. Tonight we'll hear about Trevor's experience, his life story, and I'm sure every one of us here tonight will be inspired, will learn a lot, and certainly have much to take home to think about. So on that note, it's Trevor's night. We introduce, and again, thank you for coming, Trevor.
Leave the clapping until I'm finished, and you tell me how we get on. Joseph, thank you. If anyone paid more than £5 for this function to listen to me, you've been fleeced. Joseph Mendy said, keep it short. He says he's going away at Christmas, so I promise I'll never disappoint. Okay? I'm here to talk. I want to tell you, if anyone wants to listen, believe me, it's a mitzvah. I want to talk about success, because everyone deems success as being the measure of what you do in life. And I'm going to try and define it, but if anyone has got any contribution to make, on another category or one of them, tell me about it, because it's important. We want to know what motivates people, what gets people out of bed, and how you measure a life. I would say that, of course, money is very important. Money buys you freedom. Health. Without health, what have you got? Happiness, inner contentment, that's all important, part of success, both for you and the family. Loving what you do is a very important part of success. Gaining recognition, fame and glory. And Lord knows, I've had probably more than my fair share of glory. I would say not necessarily always earned, but nevertheless I'll take it. Coping with failure and tough times, that's real. That's part of life, and a very important part of life. believe so much in passion commitment. That's the turbocharge that gets you where you want to go and separates the wheat from the chaff, the men from the boys. And I'm being sexist. Success for me this evening is to obviously entertain you and to impart whatever I can, if I can inspire you, please God, and to provoke some thoughts in your mind. As far as I'm concerned, I'd be happy if you thought that starting out, for any of you starting out or anyone changing businesses, I'd like to make you think it's easier than you think. I suppose Gary Player would always, he was always quoted as saying, people think I'm a lucky player, it's just the more I practice, the luckier I get. So it's never easy, but it's easier than you think actually if you apply yourself. Let me start by talking about money, if I may. Technically, it buys you freedom. But to me, money is, and to most people, it should be, it's as much a danger as a blessing. It's radioactive. To me, it's radioactive. And radioactivity can give you cancer, it can cure cancer. But people think that money buys you everything. If you've got a lot of it, you must be happy. I'm not so sure about that. I came from a modest background. My father was a dentist. We were in South Africa. And I didn't mix with money people necessarily, so there was no leg up for me in life. I was bathed with emotional security and love, I'm delighted to say. But I was a typical middle-class background. I studied dentistry, not even though my family were medically trained. I wanted to do dentistry. No one pressed me into it. And I had this calling to get out of academia. I wanted to get out into the big, bad world. I had this yearning and I couldn't get it out of my mind. And I just left. One day I just left and I was student representative of the year. I stayed there for 2 years. I never looked back. What's the biblical story of never looking back with the salt and everything? I never looked back. Come on, you still have the stories ready?
Oh, yeah.
But what I didn't realise, I opened the door to life. But when you're in a vocational track, all you can see is the bottom of the sheep in front of you. That's all you can see. You can't see left, you can't see right. And when the pen opens, it's like a prisoner who gets out in the open world. He can do everything and nothing at the same time. It's a frightening prospect. Added to which, it was 1974, and you ask any economist, 1974 is the worst November, is the worst month of the worst year, the post-war year. It was terrible. It made today's recession look like a walk in the park. This was real recession. And it was like opening up a baker shop in Nagasaki in 1945. There's no business. So I started nevertheless, and within a few years, I should just say, when I left dentistry, my next door neighbour was an estate agent. So I didn't even know what estate agents were all about. I just sort of fell into the business, and there wasn't any business to be had there. In fact, the manager left after 3 weeks. I was the manager. I didn't have a bloody clue. I used to pick up the phone, talk to people, and didn't know what to say to them. It was not a social chat. There was no business to be had. Anyway, so I met up with a city veteran. People don't know him, but he was a man who was extremely well known in the city, 20 years older than me, and we started a business. Now, did we start in a Mayfair suite of offices with panelled boardrooms and secretaries, a myriad of secretaries? No. It was a tertiary residential hotel with a 7-day lease. And I drove around in my green Alfa Sud car with a a mobile phone in the car, because I was a busker. I had to be everywhere. And we paid £2,500 for the car, £2,500 for the photocopier, and I was in business. I had £5,000 to run the business. Anyway, we had no phones, no frontage. One man, he came to me, he was puce in the face, sweating profusely. It was 1974. 1976 was the hottest summer that they'd had for 20 years. And I was sitting there in my underwear. I said, "Forgive me if I don't get up." And he said, "I've taken off the whole afternoon to find you." He says, "At last I found you." I don't know what he got when he found me, but anyway. So I thought to myself, well, I might as well sell expensive properties. You can get more from selling expensive properties than cheap properties. I'd love to tell you it was a scientific decision, and I think it was quite simple. So I wrote these letters to people, and don't forget, when I started, our logo was bright green. We looked like landscape gardeners more than estate agents. Everything in estate agents was black and white. It was Montgomery, Alderman, and Fitch. And they all had sort of these big Dickensian books and, quill pens. And the man used to turn up at your house, you can't understand bloody what he says. But he's a valuer. Now, when you want a valuer to value, he values. But if you want a marketeer, you want a salesman. I was the salesman. And I was this cheeky 21-year-old who I wasn't trained in anything. And I basically, full of chutzpah, pregnant with promise, but precious little else. And people found me suspicious. I mean, is this a landscape gardener? I mean, what is he doing here? Selling my property. In the meantime, I don't know, I finagled my way through, and I was advising John Hines, for instance. He had a property with 11 acres of land in Highgate,
Amazing.
which today would be worth 80 million, 90 million. And I was younger than his youngest son, advising him on this property. Believe me, if you can blag that, I think you can blag anything. Anyway, but I'll tell you what I learned from my partners, Bob Tanner, who were great, very well known. I used the press. And if you learn a knack of using the press, this is like free power. And I'll tell you you'll see it running through what I do. I don't know if anyone knows anything about space, but my mother goes out with a rocket scientist, believe it or not. You never thought you'd meet one, but my mother goes out with her. It's her fiancé. He's 86. Two steel knees and a pig's heart, sorry, no offense. But he keeps them alive, so it's kosher, yeah? When they were trying to get this particular spacecraft to photograph all the planets across the edge of the solar system, you would need a massive rocket, massive energy, massive money. So what they did, they didn't have this, it was too expensive, so what they did, they used what's called the slingshot effect. And you use the gravitational forces of each planet as you go by, and you actually get slung out into space, but you get faster and faster and faster. And I call that the slingshot effect, and it's free. And press is free, but providing you know what you're doing with it, because it can, blow up in your face, of course. But it was one of the things that we used, and to be honest, we grew like Topsy, and we were accused of being the parable of Thatcherite enterprise. Persistence was my catchphrase. I worked to 11 o'clock at night because nothing comes, if you don't work for it. And my peers at that time were all going out and having fabulous social lives. But I started something, and I wasn't going to leave it until I'd done all I could with it. So, 10 years later, my partner said, "Why don't we float?" This is a single headquarter office in Golders Green. Why don't we float? Why don't we go to the moon? Why float? Why don't we be ambitious? Let's go to the moon. What about a spacecraft? Who cares about spacecraft? Let's go to the moon. It's an idea. So it was a daft idea, and I went to various merchant banks, and they all said to me, "You're too small. You've no tier management." I thought, they don't understand, do they? They don't understand. So I kept going, and Harry and Georgia here, their late grandfather, I went to see him, Stuart Young at the time, and he said, "You're too small," because we were too small, but they weren't seeing the big picture. What's the big picture? You're too bloody small. How can I put that any other way? So I found my 10th merchant bank who said, "I think we can do it. I think we can do it." So the 10th merchant bank says to me, "Look, we need, in today's money, we need about £25,000 for institutional presentation and £25,000 for PR, etc." And I looked at them blankly. "We haven't got £50,000 to spend." So he said, "Well, you can't float." I said, "Well, there must be another way. Surely there's another way." So I thought, we've got £30, haven't we? Yeah, we've got £30. So we put a board up in the middle of Hampstead Pond saying, "Glentree PLC more floatable than Noah's Ark." And all the rich investors passed by, "Get me some of that stock, get me some of that stock, get me some of that stock," all passing by this board, for £30. I remember the man that is in charge of that, it's for horses, the pond, and he walks in, it was about 7 o'clock in the morning, and he walks into the pond like this because he wanted to get that board down because it shouldn't have been there. But his galoshes, his Wellington boots were only so high. So he walks in, but the water is going over that thing, so you had to leave it for an hour. In the meantime, it did its work. So for 30 quid, I got all these investors. And this is a company that should never have floated. I admit, it should never have floated. The shares started live at 16 pence, and within an hour, they were 30 pence. Within a day, they were 50 pence, and within 6 months, it was £4.50. So that stupid, ridiculous single office was worth in today's money £200 million. It was double the size of Savills. It was the fastest moving share since records began. We were buying Connells. I went when I was in County Nat West. By the time I got to in the entrance and the top of the thingamabob, because they had such a fast lift, we did this when we got to the top, and our shares had gone up because people saw us in the reception. They thought, "Must be doing a deal. Let's buy those shares." So it was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I didn't make any money by it, but others made plenty of money. And as long as other people are making money, I'm happy. Anyway, so. What did I learn from this? What did I learn? I watched all my contemporaries change their lives, driving chauffeur-driven cars, and changing houses, and buying their wives all sorts of manner of things, etc. And I didn't believe it. I had more acclaim than you could shake a stick at. I didn't believe a word of it. I saw it as a big glass screen between me and all that avarice. And it's a good job I didn't believe it. I drove in my stupid little Honda. Now I'm upgraded to a smart car. And I went by underground wherever I could, because it's more effective when you want to go to the city from Hampstead Garden Suburb in the morning for meetings, etc. And I refused. I never forgot what put food on the table. I ate at local restaurants. I wasn't interested in all this, the so-called trappings of wealth, because I saw it as being transient. And frankly, you need confidence to drive a smart car, which I do. You need to be confident, because either people think you're an inverted, successful man, or you've gone skint. So I've got to be confident. There are people that in my industry and my community who, if their first car was being serviced and the second car broke down and the third car was a hard car, if it was a smart car, they'd walk. At least they wouldn't go out. Anyway, probity. I want to talk just briefly about probity, because, people think that if you cheat people, people grow wealthy by cheating other people. That's how they grow wealthy. Now, I'm going to, if I may, I have this little saying that in life, I know this is a romantic view, but in life, I will take £50 and I will put it in my fellow man, not to be sexist, I'll put it in his pocket. Momentarily, I've done something unprovoked, which I didn't need to do, and they're £50 better off. But when I'm not looking, 6 months later, they will put £50 in my pocket. Now, we're both, neither of us are better or worse off. Yeah? But that's not real life. Life is, when you're not looking, I'm going to take £50 from your pocket, and when I'm not looking, you're going to take £50 from my pocket. To me, I'd rather be in the giving world than the taking world. I know that's a romantic view, but I'm going to hold to that view, and long may it continue, and may I spread the word. But I say with great pride, but I've never broken my word to anyone in 38 years. People trusted me for millions. And I've never broken my word in 38 years, and I'm not going to start now. And I feel very strongly that the legacy you leave is your reputation, because you can't take the money with you. And you don't need to cheat people to be successful. You can be successful without it. Extremely successful. Okay, all right. Do I put oil on the face of my driver to cut down my slice? Yes, I do. And I play a better game, thank you very much. But God punishes me with a bad score. Don't worry, I get it. It doesn't help me that much. So, I respect money. I guard it very carefully. It could be the making, as I said, or breaking of you. But I enjoy this warm feeling of being self-made. And I just want to contrast, just briefly, if I may, the difference between, I call it the trust fund kids. People that have inherited their wealth, it's come relatively easily. My money's never come easily. And when these hands went out and made money, and I made money. When they didn't, I didn't. But I was trying to explain to my mother's partner, when he said, my daughter here is going out with a ridiculously wealthy boy. And he said, Jerry said, but this chap doesn't need to work. I mean, he's got his family's taking care of him. If he doesn't need to work, he shouldn't work. I said, Jerry, what a dull existence. Where's the striving? I said, I don't know if you watched the Ryder Cup. You may not be golfers, but if you watched the Ryder Cup this year, did anyone watch the Ryder Cup? It was 7 hours of the most exciting sports event, and I don't watch sports normally. I was glued. No, I couldn't go for a pee while this was on. I missed something. So, if you would have said to me, look, here's the score, this is what happened, do you want to watch it? Well, I won't watch it for 7 hours. Maybe just give me the last events or give me the highlights. So knowing what is going to happen in life before you live it is like reading the last chapter of the book. You've got to read the whole book, but you never know. You should never know when you're going to get there. The greatest trapeze artists are the ones that do their stuff, strut their stuff, as the expression goes, without a net. One sloppy grasp, and they're dead. But that's what makes them such good artists. And to me, I believe in. I'm a fully paid up member of the meritocracy. Health. Can we talk about health? I'm going to sound like a bullet now, I'm afraid. I mean, Steve Jobs, you refer to Steve Jobs. How rich was he? How rich was he? He was a poor man. He didn't have health. He was a poor man. It doesn't help him. All that wealth and acclaim which he so richly deserved didn't help him. So if one thing is missing, who gets everything? Who gets money, success, contentment, health, happiness? You know, who gets everything? One person is wealthy, but that's not success. That is one part, one facet, and not the most important part. So health is so important. I'll be honest with you. For myself, my late dad, I will speak in a second, but I've been very careful that, you know, I believe if you lead a sedentary life and you smoke and you drink and you're under stress, what do you want? What do you expect? What do you expect is going to happen to you? You know, it's going to be one thing or another, but it's going to happen, and you don't know when. That's all you don't know. You don't know when. But so I believe if something happens to me beyond my control, I can't help it. I'll feel better about that. I often say to people who I'm interested, where people have sadly got lung cancer, for instance, why didn't they do something about it? You want to rattle them, you know, because you can avoid certain things. So health is so important. Happiness. Now, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Happiness is so important. It's so important to success because if you don't build, it doesn't matter how tall and bold your edifice that you're building, if you don't build it on solid foundations, you've got nothing. It's going to fall, it's going to lean, it's going to crack. Happiness is the foundations you build things on. And, you know, I see so many of my peers that have done incredibly more successfully than me, and some less so. And I believe, and if there's one thing I'd like you, a few things I'd like to pass on to you. If you're climbing up a mountain, that's great. Look at where you want to go to. By all means, never forget where you want to go to. Look down from where you've come from. But never forget, just take in the view, breathe the air, enjoy it, enjoy the experience. Because people, you know, and we can all name them, can't we? You know, they're climbing up that mountain, their heads down, they don't see anything, they don't see the kids, they don't see anything. Everything is driven to climbing up that mountain. Now that's not success to me. That's not an all-rounded success. You've got to enjoy the process. And sometimes it's bad, sometimes good. I'm not saying it's all good. But take in the sight. Enjoy what you've done. We've all done things. You know, it's not, you know, we should never stop aspiring. But, you know, if you don't enjoy the steps on the way, what have you got? So happiness to me is an irresistible force. And I believe it's contagious. I try and make it as contagious as I can. And I try and infect as many people with it as I can. I deliberately make it difficult